Hello there, welcome back to the booth here at Pro Tour 25th anniversary. I'm Marshall Sutcliffe, joined by Paul Cheon. Thanks so much for coming along for coverage of the Pro Tour over the course of the weekend. Now we are down the final stretch here in the initial portion of the Pro Tour, right? We're going to be cutting to a top four at the end of the day, but that's actually going to come up pretty quickly. We've only got 4 more rounds before we get to that point. Top four is not really taking shape just yet. There's still a lot of magic to play, but Paul and I are going to be bringing you every single round for the rest of the day. We've got in the feature match right now 2 of our top seeded teams currently. That is the team of Utter-Leyton, Stark, and Juza. They're facing Wu, Hull, and Orange, who are 8-1-1. The Channel Fireball team is 9-1. So they're very much within striking distance of a top 4, both of these teams, but their work is not yet done. They need wins in order to secure those slots. So the players are ready. Let's head on down. It's time for round number 11 here from Pro Tour 25th anniversary.
Oh, it's Lazy Helix! Oh my God!
Oh, easy game!
He didn't look and that was it!
What have you drawn? What is it? What is it? What is it?
Helix Jensen is your world champion!
Hello and welcome back to coverage here at Pro Tour 25th anniversary. I'm Marshall Sutcliffe in the booth with Paul Cheon, and we're ready for round 11 action. We're down in the feature match here. We're going to be kicking things off with Legacy. Wow, I really love the deck that Josh Utter-Leyton is playing this weekend. Blue-black, Death Shadow. This thing is a tight list with some cool innovations. It isn't brand new to the scene, but this version of it has some really nice stuff. I had a chance to talk to Luis, who's also playing it. He says he loves this list. And, of course, Josh is the progenitor of it. On the other side of the table, got Alan Wu. He's playing a deck. I asked him, and he said he's been playing it for 4 or 5 years now, Paul. He's playing Death and Taxes.
Yeah, Death and Taxes is a deck that's been around for forever, very, very long time. There have been a couple of additions, recently, but the core of the deck is, a deck that's looking to, play a lot of mana denial effects in Rishadan Port, Wasteland, and then also, just getting all your creatures to play through the power of Aether Vial. Now, I also got a chance to talk to Luis about this deck, and he thinks, if you want to play a Delver deck, this is probably the best Delver deck to play in Legacy. And part of the reason why you didn't see this as much in the past is because the 1-mana black creature of choice to play before was Deathrite Shaman. And now with Deathrite Shaman no longer being that 1-drop, Death Shadow is very easily able to slide in now as the 1-mana win condition of choice.
Here's Mother of Runes to kick things off for Wu after Josh Utter-Leyton played a Ponder on his turn.
And it looks like Alan Wu is on a mulligan.
Indeed, he is. Mother of Runes could be a big problem for him, for Josh down the stretch, as he is at least somewhat reliant on getting through on the ground with cards like Gurmag, Angler, and Death Shadow.
Yeah, so he did have the ability to daze the Mother of Runes, but it looks like he's got a Snuff Out in his hand too. And I imagine very likely that he's going to use the removal spell, before the Mother of Runes is active and can protect itself from one of Josh's removal effects.
That's right. That window is closing quickly. She has Summoning Sickness right now, but once Alan gets to untap with Mother of Runes, she becomes way more difficult to get rid of and could be a priority for Josh depending on how he sees this game unfolding. Now, the interesting thing about Mother of Runes, of course, is that she's basically purely a defensive creature. She will not be applying pressure to Josh's life total directly.
Yeah, very rarely does the Mother of Runes actually get to attack, unless, you have an Umezawa's G10 in play and have no other creatures on the battlefield.
And
but yes, Snuff Out, a very nice addition, to this deck. This is a deck that's looking to get its life total low enough to play a Death Shadow early. And Snuff Out just is exactly what this deck wants. It's basically a free spell. It's a free removal spell, and you're losing life, which is exactly what you want to be doing.
Really, really powerful in this deck. And as you can see, we're here on turn number 2. And while Josh doesn't have a Death Shadow proper this time, if he had, he could have actually cast it already.
Right. And Josh Utter-Leyton did choose to take the other Mother of Runes because if Alan Wu plays a Thalia in hand, Josh does have the Daze here. And this is going to be rough. One of the main ways that you can actually fight as the Death and Tax player against these decks with a bunch of counter magic is either drawing some, Cavern of Souls or getting to sneak in that Aether Vial on turn 1. But because Wu doesn't have that and because he was on a mulligan, this is going to be a very, very difficult game to win.
Yeah, he's had his hands stripped bare here as well. He's got nothing left. And there's also a Thoughtseize here for Josh. He revealed that to the Delver of Secrets and attacked. Also, we saw an interesting hesitation there from Utter-Leyton. Paul, he was deciding which card to pick up with his days because sometimes they actually would like to replay the Watery Grave to lose 2 more life.
Yeah, and you see that happen often. I think he opted for the Underground Sea because Alan Wu is playing a creature deck, so sometimes Alan will just do the work for him. You do see that play a lot. Actually, earlier yesterday, we saw Ben Friedman cast his own spell, daze his own spell just to return a Watery Grave to his hand, to basically use it as a pump spell to do the final 2 points of damage.
Pretty cool. In the meantime, Josh, things looking really good for him. He's able to start attacking in the air. Alan has no defense, no offense, nothing going on. In his hand, he does have a Recruiter of the Guard as well as a Rishadan Port.
Yeah, but Josh does not have the biggest clock here, as he does just have that Delver in play. So maybe if Alan Wu can string together a few threats in a row here, maybe draw a Swords to Plowshares, that might buy him enough time.
He's going to lose that Recruiter now to the Thoughtseize. So it is really tap the top of the library here for Wu and hope he just finds a steady string of threats or maybe an answer for the Delver. Let's see what he's got.
Yeah.
He's going to play his Port. And he's just passing the turn back. So it looks like nothing there for Wu. He's going to activate his Rishadan Port on upkeep, denying Utter-Leyton one of his mana sources. But boom, 3 more damage in the air.
Yeah, and Josh Utter-Leyton drew another blue spell, which was a second copy of Force of Will. So now Josh Utter-Leyton has Force of Will and Daze to deal with whatever threat that Alan Wu might draw. So Alan actually needs to draw 2 threats here to actually be able to have a chance of winning this game.
Yeah, this one's really starting to slip away now from Wu, especially given that he can't seem to draw anything of relevancy. He keeps finding more lands, and even though they are denying Josh his mana, he's now porting twice per turn. It's not enough. He's behind on board, and maintaining status quo at this point is not in Alan Wu's best interest. Here is Phyrexian Revoker off the top of the library, but Josh says, sure. What are you going to even name that I care about that much?
Right. It doesn't do a whole lot, but at the same time, keep in mind that Josh Utter-Leyton is already down to 5 life. So 3 attacks from the Phyrexian Revoker is lethal.
So he actually just wins.
Oh, but that was a huge draw.
What did he find?
He found a Death Shadow.
Oh.
Although Alan Wu does... Yeah, and does Josh Utter-Leyton have a land to play?
I don't think he actually has a land to play out of his hand here. He's got double Force of Will, Daze, Delver, and a Death Shadow.
Yeah, so at this
Awkward.
At this point, Josh Utter-Leyton actually might be interested in just dazing anything that Alan Wu plays next turn, even if he can pay for it. Because if he does that, he can bounce the Watery Grave and then play it to cast the Death Shadow.
Instead, he's going to block with his Insectal Aberration. And now he's really going to have to play something because Stoneforge Mystic is on the stack now for Alan Wu, and he's not going to want to let that one.
This is certainly going to get countered. I think he might look to daze. Okay, no, he's not. He's just going to be patient here because Alan Wu has the ability to use Rishadan Port to tap down that Watery Grave, meaning that Josh can't actually play a threat this turn. So Josh's land is actually tied up. So yeah, dazing, again, might have been an interesting option there because if he dazes it, he gets to return the Watery Grave to hand and play a Death Shadow on his turn.
Even though Alan can simply pay for it.
Right. But, I mean, he does have that play available to him whenever he wants. He can do it now if he wants.
He's still going to just go for Force of Will again because even a lowly Phyrexian Revoker is a 2-turn clock at this point, and Josh needs to find a land off the top of his library.
Josh is like, please play something. I want a daze.
Yeah, but he isn't. He's just passing the turn back. There's a Street Wraith.
Oh, gee. Josh Utter-Leyton's hand is just...
He can't really cycle the Street Wraith either, right? Because his likelihood of finding a fetch land is too high.
Okay, and now there's a Flicker Wisp. So now what Alan Wu can do is play Flicker Wisp, target one of his lands. It'll come back into play at end of turn, and he still will have access to that Rishadan Port to tap down the Watery Grave.
That's right. There's Flicker Wisp on the stack. He wants to target this. Also, of note, that Flicker Wisp is straight up lethal at this point.
I think Josh Utter-Leyton is just
literally
dead.
just going to lose here. He draws Stubborn Denial. He has nothing.
Wow.
And the game ends. Wow. The Shadow player doing damage to himself backfired in a huge way as Alan Wu just sat there and kind of did nothing all game.
I don't think he expected to win that game. It looks like he's like, wow, how did that happen? You know?
I'll tell you what. I'll join him in being shocked.
Right.
That was insane. Wow. All right. Well, Alan Wu steals game one after mulliganing and having his hand stripped and being under serious pressure from Utter-Leyton in the early stages. And somehow the mana denial plan ended up working out for him. He wins game number one. I'll update you with what's going on with the rest of the tables when we come back right after these messages. Welcome back to the feature match area here in Minneapolis. We're here for Pro Tour 25th anniversary. And I mentioned that I would give you updates on the other tables when I had a minute. I lied. Tim Willoughby is going to give us updates. He's down on the floor. Tim, what do you got?
Well, it's been a good first set of games for the Hot Sauce Games team. Alan Wu, we saw him win his game one, but Ben Hull and Greg Orange able to achieve the exact same thing. Ben Hull on Hollow 1, he got 2 Bloodghasts into play very early off a Faceless Looting, and ultimately he put a lot of pressure on Ben Stark. Ben did get the Mind Stone into Croc Clan Ironworks. He went through a whole bunch of operations, even got the Scrap Trawler in play, wasn't able to finish off the combo that turn though, and that was enough for Ben to finish things off. Then we had the match between Juza and Greg Orange. In game one, Juza came out fast with a lot of creatures, but a Fumigate cleared them up. After that, we saw a Gear Hulk and Teferi come down for Orange. That was enough for him to secure game one. So going into the second set of games in this series, it is very much in the hands of Hot Sauce Games.
Ooh, baby. Clean sweep on game ones, Paul.
Yeah, very, very strong start.
I did not think that they were going to win the game on our main table there.
Yeah, that was very surprising. And look at this. We're now on to game two here. So we see
There we go.
There we go. We see a sideboard card, Leyline of the Void, out of Ben Hull, who's currently playing Black-Red Hollow 1. And the Leyline of the Void does an excellent job of preventing the Ironworks combo to go off, because part of the engine here for the Ironworks deck is to get the combination of Karkline Ironworks along with Scrap Trawler to kind of go through your entire deck. But that involves, recurring threats out of your yard. So
that's right.
We'll see if Ben Stark did bring in some Nature's Claims to deal with potential Leyline of the Void out of the board.
He does have 4 of them in his sideboard, so wouldn't be surprised to see one, though. He may have his hands full with things he needs to actually
and he has it.
claim. He does have it in his hand, and he decides, okay, you can have your Hollow one. That's fine. I'm getting rid of the Leyline. signifying that he probably has a hand that is able to go off on, turn 4-ish.
Right. I mean, at some point he's going to need to deal with it anyways. So
Right.
he also, based on this, looks like he's not too threatened about being outraced by that hollow one on turn 1. There's an even bigger game in town where now you can face a turn 1 4-3 haste in Modern with the emergence of the red-black Vengevine deck.
Yeah, we saw yesterday 3 2/2 zombies on turn 1.
Yeah.
Good, clean fun there.
The deck has potential to do some very, very powerful things.
Yeah, that was followed up, by the way, by turn 2 Goblin Bushwhacker. This one a little bit more tame, perhaps, but we'll see if Ben Stark can fight his way through. He really needs to. If he just loses a quick 2-0 to Ben Hull, boy, that's going to be a rough one. No game wins on the other side of the field here, and 1 match win locked up. You look over at Josh Utter-Leyton and Martin Hughes, and you say, guys, I'm sorry, but you both need to win back-to-back games if we're going to take down this round. That's a tall order, to say the least. So Ben Hull really hoping to be able to ride this hollow one to victory and see if he can't disrupt Ben Stark just enough to keep him off balance and not be able to go off.
So if you saw there, Ben Hull was trying to figure out what he wanted to do on that turn. He had the ability to put the Flamewake Phoenix into play attacking, but instead he opted to play a Gurmag Angler and still save that Flamewake activation for the next turn.
Yeah, so much more damage here. He's going to be able to attack for 9, put Stark on a 2-turn clock,
right,
and really ramp up the heat here.
So yeah, Ben needs to start digging and find try to find a way to assemble a combo. He does have a Mirror Retriever in hand, which does soak up 5 damage presented by the Gurmag Angler. So that might buy Ben Stark an additional turn.
And that's a critical turn. Ben Stark's on the play this time.
Yeah.
So this is his 3rd land drop that he's hitting now. If he takes 9 or maybe 11 damage next turn, he'll still be clear of death. And then next turn, that's 4 mana. In fact, he has more than 4 mana now. Oh, but we see no Krark Clan Ironworks currently.
Right, but Ben did manage to empty out his hand here. He's got access to 4 mana. He does have a Chromatic Star, a Chromatic Sphere, and a Terrarion that he can get back if he does choose to chump block with the Mirror Retriever.
Okay.
So that is, basically 3 cycles. And keep in mind also, Mind Stone is on the battlefield, which he can crack if he does need to find the pieces of the combo. So lots of draws here for Ben, but currently he does have 0 pieces of the combo. He needs the Scrap Trawler and the Krark Clan Ironworks to basically try to go off. Although
I'm kind of liking this, by the way. This is good sweat for
it
us.
makes it exciting.
Yeah,
for sure.
In the meantime, Ben Hull doing exactly what he should do, which is just put out a huge board and apply maximum pressure to Stark and force him to not have the time to go through all those cards and find exactly what he needs.
Wow, that was a big draw from Ben Hull. He drew Ancient Grudge.
Oh my goodness sake.
With Stomping Ground in
Untapped
hand.
Stomping Ground for that green mana. Oh, baby.
Right. And and currently with that Mirror Retriever on the battlefield, I don't think he's interested in casting that Burning Inquiry, as that will just provide Ben Stark with more cards in his graveyard to get back with the Mirror Retriever.
So he's going to go ahead and pay the mana, though, to get back the Flamewake Phoenix and send in the squad.
So by doing this, Ben Stark can now choose to block the Gurmag Angler, take 6, go down to 10. And then on the following turn, Ben Hull is representing lethal damage.
And that's why Ben is going to not let that happen. Ben Hull says, I'm going to use Ancient Grudge on your Mirror Retriever. Not really where you want to be, but now you can see why. It's cleared the way. And can Ben Stark find what he needs? This is the turn to do it.
All right.
Oh, he found Krark Clan Ironworks.
Ironworks. Okay, so
he did just stone cold rip the Krark Clan Ironworks. The question is this going to be enough? He isn't all the way there yet.
Right. He still has a couple of draws here. He's got that Mind Stone. He's got the Chromatic Sphere. And he did get that Terrarion back with the Mirror Retriever, so he does have a few draw steps here. And every one of those 1-mana rocks, the Chromatic Stars and the Terrarions, will net Ben Stark 1 mana, as they cost 1 to cast, and you can sacrifice them to the Krark Clan Ironworks to generate 2 mana, but they still trigger and draw your card. Chromatic Sphere, however, does not do that.
That's right. So he's going to go for the star here. He drew a Mirror Retriever for his draw step as well. Does that buy him even more looks?
Yeah, he can cast a Mirror Retriever, sacrifice it to get back either the star or the Terrarion for another look.
Now, also interesting, I believe his other draw step was a Nature's Claim. Now, if he can make a green mana, he could kill the hollow one, though he is still facing lethal otherwise.
Right.
But maybe the Retriever itself could block the Gurmag angle.
Martin Juza is just like, I'm happy I'm not playing this deck, but let's see what we draw here. This is exciting. Here we go.
It was a buried ground.
Yeah, and he has not played his land for the turn yet. But it's still, there's nothing currently in the graveyard that he can get back. So I think he might want to crack this sphere, just filter the mana that he has and draw another card here.
Yeah, that's what
really wants to find a Scrap Trawler.
He also said he wanted Ichor Wellspring the most, and he found a Pyrite Spellbomb.
Which is
Buried Ruin is a land drop he can make here as well.
So is he He's cycling here.
Yeah, you can hear he just said, I'm playing it and sacking it. Now he draws a Mox Opal.
So he has a Mox Opal, which he can sack for mana. If he uses the mana that he has in hand currently on the battlefield, the 2 mana, he can play an artifact. And if he does, he will have Metalcraft. So then he can tap the Mox Opal for mana, giving him 3 mana if he chooses to sack the Mox Opal.
Let's listen to what Ben has to say. I don't know how well that came through, but he was asking Josh Utter-Leyton, so do you think I should play this? And he goes, sure.
Sure.
He's like, look, man, you brought this deck. You play it.
Yeah.
No, I'm going to cast a star. So at least I can do it that, but you're not, like, perfectly wrong.
Yeah.
But it's something to think.
He could have tapped the Mox Opal for mana there, but he's going to play a star anyways. So he still has Metalcraft to tap the Mox Opal for mana. All right, so I think he's going to tap the Mox Opal for mana and then sacrifice the Chromatic Star. And we get to see what his draw here is.
Martin with a call there.
So now he has 4 mana. And he gets to draw. What is this?
Oh, it's an
there's a
Ichor Wellspring.
That's big.
I'm not offering it, but this is the card I need the most at this point to get going.
Okay.
That was a Scrap Trawler.
Was that a Scrap Trawler?
Yes.
It might have been a Black Spellbomb. Does he?
We'll find out in a
No,
second.
he doesn't have Black Spellbomb. You might be right.
1, 2, 3. Yeah. Oh, it's okay. It's just tough.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yep.
Oh,
it is a
he
Scrap
found the
Trawler.
Scrap Trawler.
He absolutely
Oh my
did. Is he
goodness.
actually going to be able to pull this thing out?
Right, I have 2 Retrievers. So if I just, as long as I can stack something to start it, which I don't need the Wellspring for, yeah. So
He's going.
stack this.
yeah, and I
He's got the
think
2
he has it
Retrievers
here.
in the yard, too.
I think I do with this getting Mox or whatever. And then I can bury you in the Retriever and then go infinite.
Yes, that's
Oh,
exactly
wow.
what Ben Stark is going to do. He can sacrifice the Ichor Wellspring, get back the Mox.
He can get back a 1 mana card here, actually.
Yes.
Play the Chromatic Star, then he can sack the star and get back a Mox Opal. And
That's
this
right.
will allow him to generate a bunch of mana. He already has those Mirror Retrievers as well, which you can use to get back at some point. He has a Buried Ruin.
He's going to use that to get back one of the Mirror Retrievers
Right.
now.
And now with the Mirror Retriever, he
Yep.
does have the combination here where he can generate infinite mana. And then he can basically recur the...
Star, so I have infinite cards, then I can loop Spellbomb.
All right, Ben can explain it better than I.
And he did. The end result, of course, being that he can loop the Pyrite Spellbomb, doing 2 damage each time to Ben Hull.
Right.
And Ben Stark finds his way out of that mess, giving his side of the table their first game win. And look at Ben Hull. He's like, oh, I had you, man.
Yeah. I was actually slightly surprised by the Ancient Grudge on the Mirror Retriever.
Very aggressive.
Right, I thought what he was going to do was make the attack. Even if Ben chump blocks there, he has a lethal attack on the following turn. So by keeping up Ancient Grudge, you could use that on a potential Card Clan Ironworks that Ben would play to try to go off there. So
He was trying to be as aggressive as possible. It might have cost him there.
right,
Ooh.
he still had the flashback available on the Ancient Grudge on the following turn too. So holding it up might have been the correct play, but
Yeah.
Card Clan Ironworks is a very difficult deck to play against.
Well, that was an interesting choice, too, is that he chose to use that mana to get back the Flamewake Phoenix rather than leaving up the full 3 for the cast and flashback.
Oh, right,
Yeah,
yes.
On the Ancient Grudge. And if, look, if the Flamewake Phoenix changes the clock, then sure. But if not, might have been better off just grudging 2 things. All right, well, let's jump back to Standard on our back table. This is Martin Juza on the left-hand side of your screen versus Greg Orange. And we've got a nice matchup here with red-black aggro versus blue-white control, kind of two ends of the standard spectrum represented here. We are in game number 2 with Gregory Orange having won the first game. And he's got Seal Away
Yeah, and
for Kirisev.
I would say that Greg Orange is probably a small favorite in the first game, as the red-black aggro deck does have many removal spells in the main deck that doesn't really have many targets. But once you replace, these braids and cut to ribbons with, cards like Duress and Chandra, I think the matchup does swing a little bit more in red-black's favor.
Good follow-up here for Martin Juza. He fires off Heart of Kirin, and there's no reply from Greg, who just says, sure, you got it. And then Martin says, okay, well, I'll attack you for 3. And George says, okay, or excuse me, Orange says, okay. And then Martin says, well, let's make it 4.
Yeah.
Says, okay. He's down to 14, though it does look like he's going to lose his Heart of Kirin to an Invoke the Divine, or excuse me, a Forsake the Worldly.
I think he would have preferred that to be an Invoke the Divine currently, but
Yes.
the Exile clause is very relevant on Forsake the Worldly, as you do get to get rid of the pesky Scrap Heap Scrounger.
And cycling's no
Exactly.
no joke, yeah.
There are situations where your opponent just doesn't have anything and you need to draw, threats. So this is definitely one of those turns with Martin Juza holding a Chandra Torch of Defiance. He really wants Greg Orange to, cast something like a Seal Away or a Settled Wreckage. He wants to basically make sure Orange is tapped out, because once that Chandra Torch of Defiance enters the battlefield, it will provide Juza with a continuous source of card advantage. So I imagine he's probably, oh no, he's just running out the Chandra here. All right.
And it's resolved as well.
2 damage.
And a real problem here for Gregory Orange. Cancel that order. Cast away.
2
Sends
damage.
that one packing 2. So yeah, a 1-for-1, and he's up a couple of damage. But we should note that Greg's life total is falling relatively quickly here. He's down to 9.
Yeah, and the Pia Nalar is a pretty good mana sink. It's a very strong threat by itself. Martin Juza doesn't really need to overcommit to the board here, because Pia Nalar has the ability where if you do tap 2 mana, you can give target artifact creature +1/+0 until end of turn.
And ultra convenient. She comes with an artifact creature.
She does.
I
Comes
think
with a friend.
she might have built it, in fact.
Yeah. She is an artificer.
And Greg is in an awkward position where he actually drew a tap land, even though he's got Lyra Dawnbringer ×2 in hand. The good news for him, though, is he does have Settle the Wreckage to make sure that he doesn't take any damage this turn if he sees fit. And Martin Juza is trying his best to figure out how to manage this. If he moves all in and just goes pump, pump,
Yeah, Martin
and gets
Juza's
settled, it's his whole turn.
Yeah, he's basically considering whether or not he should play a Chain Whirler before attacking, because by doing that, Greg Orange might use a counter magic spell, like Essence Scatter or Disallow, to counter the Goblin Chain Whirler. And if he does do that, then the coast is clear, and you can just attack with both the Pia Nalar and the Thopter, and you don't have to worry about a card like Seal Away or Settle the Wreckage, at least on this turn.
Oh, looks like he's got his 6th land as well. That's going to make a difference, as it allows another Thopter pump.
I expect 1 pump here, and probably that's it. This way, if Greg Orange does have Settle the Wreckage, Martin Juza can follow that up with a threat in Goblin Chain Whirler.
Yeah, and that's exactly what's going to happen here. Greg feels like taking 4 damage at this point is just too much, so he's going to fire off Settle, and that is going to clear the way for him to be at, as it turns out, he's going to be at 8 life, but he's going to get to play Lyra Dawnbringer with just facing down 1/3/3, and he's got reasonable life total at 8 as well. That's got to be good for Greg.
Yeah, Martin Juza does not have any answers to this Lyra Dawnbringer yet. So, that's also that weird game that you have to play when you play against blue-white control. Are they going to bring in Lyra Dawnbringers out of the sideboard? Because that's really the only reasonable target for your unlicensed disintegrations. And it puts you in a really awkward spot, because there are going to be games where you just lose because you have a dead card in your hand.
So this is a big draw step here for Juza, because if he can find an answer, if he still has them in his library, that could be, oh, he doesn't. He finds a mountain. And all of a sudden, the brick wall is in place. Martin Juza can play another copy of Goblin Chain Whirler, but he's going to fall way behind Lyra Dawnbringer, and he doesn't even bother playing it out. And now, all of a sudden, Greg Orange is in full control. His hand is cast out. A second copy of Lyra. It's not going to do much at the moment.
Right.
And he's got disallow now as well, I believe.
Yeah, even if Martin Juza draws a removal spell, it doesn't matter, as Orange has a second copy of Lyra and counter magic to protect the Lyra. So it's going to be really difficult for Martin to get out of this.
Yeah, Greg Orange is like, feels good, man. This is a nice place to be if you're the blue-white control player. And sure, he can trade damage, but you know what? It's 5 and a 10-point life swing versus just 3 for Martin.
There's always that tense moment. Yes.
Wow, look at that
Like,
smile from Greg. He is loving this hand.
He's like, you know what? You can just keep pushing that advantage bar as far as you can here. Yeah, I got this one locked up. Feels good, man.
He really owned that, the sentiment of feels good, man, right there.
Oh, and Martin even drew the disintegration.
The real question for Greg is, does he want to just let it go and replay, or does he want to play his disallow? Yeah,
I think he wants to disallow because he values the life gain here.
It is a significant slowdown
Yeah.
if he says, okay, sure, and then takes 3, and then has to cast another one.
And then you're basically tapped out
Not
anyways.
attacking. Yep.
So, yeah. And he drew a land for a cast out here. Unclear if he's going to do it here, but unclear if he's going to use the cast out, but it looks like he does. This makes it so that he's firmly ahead in the race. By not, if he wasn't using it, he'd be trading basically 5 damage for 1 damage, as he does get to gain 5 life with the Lyra Dawnbringer. But yeah, Lyra is just taking gigantic chunks out of Martin Juza's life total. Needs to find a removal spell. Does not.
Can't do it. So that is Greg Orange taking down the first match for his team. Hot sauce. And as he looks down the row at his 2 teammates, they have both won 1 game against their opponents. And that means that a single game win on the closer side of the table is the round. And boy, we are down the stretch here. We've got 4 more rounds to cover, including this one today. And Wu, Hull, and Orange are sitting at 8-1-1. They do have a draw on their record. If they were able to win one of these games, they'll improve to 9-1-1 and get ever closer to the top 4. We're going to be cutting to the top 4 just a little bit later today. And that is going to start to really get in sight. Now, if you're on the other side of the table for the Channel Fireball team, you know, you would drop to 9-2. You're still well within range. It's just, you know, a bit less likely that it happens. So let's see if they can fight back, though. We have seen some incredible comebacks already in this tournament. And I'll tell you what, if I'm facing down the triple Hall of Fame team, I am not feeling comfortable even with the 1-match advantage that they've got.
Right. I mean, we just saw an impressive win from Ben Stark. Keep in mind, Ben Hull had the ideal start. He had turn 1 Leyline of the Void into a Hollow 1, followed by Gurmag Angler, and then a turn 3 Ancient Grudge.
Yes, he did.
And Ben won, or Ben Stark won.
Yeah, and remember, when Ben started that turn, he had no combo pieces.
Right. Wow.
He just stone cold top decked the one he needed and was able to piece together the win.
Yeah, and here Alan Wu with the ideal start of turn 1 Ether Vial, but Josh Utter-Leyton did have the daze here. But it does slow him down a little bit.
He actually just replays his land and has no play for the turn thus far. And he's going to need more counter magic because there is a Stoneforge Mystic, and that's another kind of must counter card if you're sitting in Utter-Leyton's seat.
Yeah, he does have another daze, which means it's going to further stunt his mana. But at the same time, the Hollow 1 deck can operate fairly easily on 1 mana, as basically it's got, you know, something like 27, 28 1-mana spells in its deck. Josh Utter-Leyton also has a Snuff Out, which you could use to deal with the Stoneforge Mystic.
Yeah, we've seen Alan Wu has the ability. Oh, it does resolve, by the way. Has the ability to get Umezawa's Jitte. He also has Batterskull and Sword of Fire and Ice available to him as a suite of different equipment that he can get.
I was going to say, it'd be interesting to see what he actually opts to go for with the Stoneforge Mystic. They were because Josh Utter-Leyton was speaking with his teammates. It is very possible that Josh Utter-Leyton had a removal spell in hand, and if he does have a removal spell in hand, if you fetch a Batterskull, it's going to be a while before you actually get to cast a Batterskull. So, given that information, it could have been possible for Alan Wu to consider getting a cheaper equipment that he can cast something like a Sword of Fire and Ice or an Umizawa's Jite.
Yeah, the thing that compounds this is that Alan actually has another copy of Stoneforge in hand as well, so he may have been like, it's fine if you kill this, I can use the activated ability on my second Stoneforge Mystic later on. Down to 12 for Utter-Leyton. And he's got him to Turok.
Him to Turok.
Let's spin the wheel. This is a big one.
Alan Wu's hand is pretty stacked, but it does look like he could use an additional land here. Now, what are we getting?
I'm curious if he hits the other Stoneforge.
What do we got?
Oh, he hit a Mother of Runes and a Flicker Wisp. Okay. That means that Stoneforge is still in hand. The reason I was curious about it was just because he's light on mana sources, and as you mentioned a minute ago, Paul, that Batterskull likely to get stuck in hand for a
Alan really
long
wants
time.
a land because that way his Stoneforge gets to
King?
play around days. So that was a huge draw from Alan Wu.
And it resolves because of that land. With days in hand for Utter-Leyton, he's helpless.
Yep.
And all I can do is say, okay, you got it. And now we see Alan's going to go get a Sword of Fire and Ice. And he's going to have that Stoneforge Mystic at the ready. If he gets to untap, the world is his oyster. I mean, he can just start putting in Batterskulls or even the Sword.
Yeah, Josh Utter-Leyton needs to find a threat fairly quickly. You know, he does have a good amount. I mean, he's playing 4 Delvers, 4 Death Shadows, along with Gurmag Angler. He does have some deck manipulation spells in his hand. And he's got the Fatal Push for the Stoneforge Mystic, and I imagine he's going to be using that so that Alan Wu can't just put that Batterskull into play for free.
He has a Snuff Out, right?
Oh, I thought he had a Fatal Push.
He used it on the first
Oh,
one. Did
okay,
he
so
have a
this one,
backup?
yeah.
Yeah, he used one on the initial.
So he's got the Snuff Out here for the Stoneforge.
Though he paid a dear price for playing with his life total. Flew a little too close to the sun in game number 1 and ended up losing as a result.
If he doesn't find a threat, I believe Josh Utter-Leyton also is holding a Wasteland in his hand. Although, or maybe he's looking at a Wasteland. Okay, so he's got a Wasteland in his hand. So he could choose to use the Wasteland and also the Snuff Out to kind of make it so that it's more likely that his Dazes will be live.
Snuff Out happens. Go down to 8. Stoneforge Mystic hits the graveyard. Dread of
Ooh.
So that locks out actually quite a few creatures, though a little awkward for Josh just because of the way that the Hymn to Turok actually went. The Flicker Wisp and the Mother of Runes were both vulnerable to Dread of Night, but those were the discards.
Yeah.
And instead he got to keep cards like Batterskull and Flicker Wisp.
Right. And
look at this, Council's Judgment.
But Josh Utter-Leyton does have a Daze here, and I imagine he's going to fire it off here.
Yeah,
got to be
kinda
happy
has
about
to.
that.
You notice he picks up his Underground Sea, not his Watery Grave.
He's like, I'm already at 8. I don't want to just die to a single Flicker Wisp attack this time around.
That's right. But what does he really need? A threat.
Oh, and there it is.
What did he find?
I believe that was a Death Shadow.
All right. That is what he's been looking for. Alan Wu has done a marvelous job of just presenting a lot of threats here.
No, it wasn't. Maybe it's a Liliana the Last Hope. I see one of those in his sideboard. Let's take a look.
That wouldn't be bad.
Oh, it's the Liliana the Last Hope.
That kind of counts as a threat.
Yeah, and that is actually a very strong 2-card combination there. The combination of Dread of Night plus Liliana the Last Hope. I mean, how many creatures
I
does
would
Alan
say
Wu actually
0.
survive?
My guess would be 0. Mirren Crusader survives.
Mirren Crusader is the only creature.
Just because you can't target it.
Right, right.
Is that the only one, though?
He has 1 Mishra's Factory in his deck. I guess
Okay.
that one survives,
No.
but not a lot. But Alan Wu, I believe, had a Gideon Allied Zendikar in hand. I could totally see him playing it and then using the emblem to counteract that Dread of Night.
Oh, that'd be interesting, too. So what Josh decides to do, though, is he says, look, I need the threat or another card. I'm just going to get back Street Wraith. I think he was looking for, a Death Shadow.
Right.
And had to settle for a Street Wraith is probably more accurate.
Yeah. The thing is, he's not really going to get to a point where I think he's not going to get to a point where he's going to get one to Liliana emblem. He can just kind of win by grinding through with the Liliana.
Okay.
So he really just wants to find a threat and try to close out this game when he can.
Looks like just going to be sword play here for Alan Wu, though he does also have the Umazawa's Jitte and the Batter Skull in hand. But it's going to be tough with no creatures to equip and Dread of Night on the battlefield. Perhaps Josh Utter-Leyton's sideboard strategy is going to let him come out the victor here. He's going to go down to 6 life
6 to 18.
with the Street Wraith.
You know, a kind of cute interaction here is the interaction between Brainstorm and Liliana the Last Hope minus. You can effectively kind of use it as a fetch land where you cast a Brainstorm, put your worst 2 cards on top, and then minus on the Liliana.
I like that. That's interesting. And look at this. Dead draws for Alan Wu. He just is going to play another equipment. This time it's Umazawa's Jitte. But that doesn't do anything because his draw step was Mother of Runes.
Well, yeah, good luck equipping a creature with Dread of Night and Liliana on the battlefield.
No kidding. Let alone connecting with it.
Right. Yeah, this is going to be really rough for Alan. I don't even know how he gets out of this.
I actually just want to see Liliana Ultimate now. I have no interest in grinding. I want to see zombies. Is that another Dread of Night?
Oh, jeez.
That even takes care of the worst problems. There's no reason to not play it, right? Oh,
Yeah.
there's the Brainstorm.
Now, Mirren Crusader
Just dies on
is
impact.
no longer a card that he can draw either. Phyrexian Revoker does not survive. So, I mean, he's got a Batter Skull in hand, but needs to get to 5 mana.
That is one way that he could do this, though. It would require Josh to draw no more Wastelands and or Wu to draw all lands, that are either basic or Josh with no wastes. But
Right.
there's a Preordain and off of the Brainstorm with 2 cards going back on top of the library.
Ooh, are we going to see the... Did he just pick up the Liliana already? I was wondering if we're going to see the
No,
Liliana minus.
he has
play.
not ticked up the Liliana. And there it is, just like you described.
And he still has a card to get back. He's got that Street Wraith in his graveyard.
Oh, man.
So, can't miss.
Called shot from Paul Chia on there. Gets rid of Snuff Out on a land and now cycles the Street Wraith. But, I mean, is this a hard lock? Like, is there anything? Like, does Alan have an answer for the Dread of Night, either of them?
Yeah, he has 2 copies of Council's Judgment in his sideboard.
So
we
one
already
left.
saw 1.
Yeah. Mhm.
So it's going to be nearly impossible for Alan Wu to get out of this. He really wants to basically he wants to get to that 4th and 5th mana to be able to play both Gideon and Batter Skull. But if he doesn't, then yeah, he is in a lot of trouble.
Yeah, he can use Gideon's Emblem to counteract one of the Dread of Night, maybe take care of the other one via Council's Judgment. This is Ponder now for Utter-Leyton.
All right. Finally, Josh has found a creature that he can cast. That's a Delver of Secrets on top.
That's business. By the way, I see another copy of Days in hand for Josh, which is another speed bump along the way here for Alan Wu, making it that much more difficult for him to get up to 5 mana and actually resolve that Batter Skull.
Yeah, and Alan Wu cannot afford to use that Wasteland. But he does have Swords to Plowshares in hand.
You see him a little shake of the head, though, from Alan. I think he understands the incredible lock that he's under thanks to 2 Dread of Night plus Liliana the Last Hope. Sideboard tech from Josh Utter-Leyton coming in extremely handy.
Oh, yeah. Taking a look at Josh Utter-Leyton's sideboard, he did not want to lose to Death and Taxes. The multiple copies of Dread of Night and Liliana the Last Hope.
Oh, yeah. Oh, he's got all the hate cards lined up. Preordained now from Josh says both on the bottom. He's just looking for, what, a Death Shadow? That would be optimal.
Well, what about a 3rd Dread of Night?
Okay. I'm interested. I mean, there's no sweepers for that type of card in this matchup.
Right. It's not like Alan Wu has engineered explosives
Right.
for 1 in his sideboard.
Right. Though it does look like Josh declined to actually play the 3rd Dread of Night.
Maybe just doesn't want to give away information potentially for game number 3, because it is very likely that that's where we're headed here.
Also, actual none of Alan's creatures survive at this point.
Right. Yeah.
So it is a little overkill, I guess.
Right. There is no. Well, there have been some Death and Taxes decks that do play like a singular copy of Brightling, which is a 3 mana 3/3. So that could be maybe a reason.
Okay.
To just have the Dread of Night in play.
Not the case here, though, right?
No, not the case here.
No Brightling.
There's a Leonid Relic Warder Alan Wu has in his sideboard, but it would die the moment it hits the battlefield, so he would not be able to deal with those enchantments. Yeah. His real route to victory here is basically Gideon, ally of Zendikar, or that Batterskull that he has in hand. But Raptor's just up so many cards. He's just dug through so many cards in his deck. He's just, at this point, so likely to just find threats.
No. Yeah. Like if you get guerrilla tactics and moves or something like, you know.
Well, could be.
Yeah. I assume you know like that there's nothing that can happen, like, you know, comes into play and kills you or something.
Sure.
Another him to Turok now.
Oh,
from
this
Utter-Leyton.
is big. Raptor might just be able to seal the deal here if he just gets Gideon, ally of
ally.
Zendikar, and Batterskull.
Yeah. What is it?
Nope, just blinks.
Yep, just bricks that aren't doing anything anyway. Upticks Liliana. Can we just go for that emblem now, Paul? Or
Maybe.
am I talking
maybe.
you into it?
It might be emblem.
There's a land
Why
off the
not?
top. Now, this does actually open up Gideon, though. He looks like he doesn't want to play it.
Looks like he wants to play around a Daze.
Yeah.
That's a Death Shadow. So Josh Utter-Leyton has finally found some threats. It looks like there's also Delver of Secrets in hand, so.
Is he going to just drop both threats in the same turn? Yeah. Death
Yeah.
Shadow and Delver of Secrets plus Liliana go. Thalia, Guardian of Thraben off the top of the library for Allen, though. It must be said that's not what he wants. And now he's seriously considering just running out the Gideon. The real problem here is that Josh is still at 4, and Gideon would only be a 3/3, right? It's still a white creature.
Right.
So
But he might want to
not
tick up.
lethal
and-
on its own.
Yeah, he might want to tick up and then emblem. That would counteract one of the Dread of Nights, but even then, Josh Utter-Leyton does have that third copy of Dread of Night, so
Yeah,
Alan Wu just has to fight through way too much hate here.
Of course, any knights that Gideon makes would instantly be dead.
Yeah, and Liliana, the Last Hope, is a nice card to have in the sideboard because not only is it very effective against Death and Taxes, it's just a good way to grind through the various Grixis control decks that we've seen pop up in this tournament.
I love that card.
Yeah. So Alan Wu down to 6 life here.
And there's a Gurmag Angler as well.
Yeah, now
And it
this
feels like there's just nothing left for Alan Wu to do at this point.
right.
Now, even resolving one of the spells that we've been talking about this whole time doesn't actually do anything.
One really fun interaction is the interaction between Swords to Plowshares and Death Shadow. If you if your opponent has like multiple Death Shadows in play, you can Swords one, and then I believe the other one would die.
It does.
Yes.
Oh, that's nasty.
So you just gotta make sure you don't play 2 Death Shadows against the Swords to Plowshares deck.
That's right. Okay, well, Josh Utter-Leyton does end up taking down that game, and that means now that on the other side of the battlefield, well, they've all got a game win as well, and this thing is looking a lot closer than it was at the onset of the round.
Are we good to start?
You can never count out these Hall of Famers. They've been down a game. You know, they've started out tournaments 0-1, 0-2, and still have been able to string together wins and make top 8. So but this is a good way to start.
Yes, this is going to be very problematic for Ben Stark because Ben Hull not only is on the play, not only has Thoughtseize turn 1, also has Leyline of the Void.
And he's going to take that Nature's Claim.
Now, one of the interesting things, though, Paul, that I've seen when you bring in this much hate out of the sideboard is that it can be difficult to enact your own game plan. I mean, that's 2 cards right there that don't actually attack.
Yeah, definitely. But there are a couple of easy cards to sideboard out for Ben Hull. You know, oftentimes these decks do play some interaction in the form of Lightning Bolt and some copies of Collective Brutality. So I think those are the types of spells that I could see Ben Hull boarding out for the 4 Leyline of the Voids and the Thoughtseizes and maybe a couple of Ancient Grudges. So he probably had to shave down on, I could see maybe even a couple of Burning Inquiries because of the fact that Ben Stark relies so heavily on his graveyard. And you know, it's not, he's not really going too far out of the way to put those sideboard cards in. But yes, you know, when you do play these like decks that are trying to be very linear, yet people often do run into the issue of over sideboarding.
We'll see if that's the case here for Ben Hull. He's cast a Faithless Looting now. He's drawn the 2, has yet to discard.
Yeah, and Leyline of the Void, very, very effective here. It even shuts down that Chromatic Star.
You don't even get the card?
Yeah, you do not. Chromatic Star says when it hits your graveyard, you get to draw a card. So while it's very nice with an effect like Card Clan Ironworks, as you can sack it to have it go into your graveyard, doesn't quite work with Leyline of the Void in play. This is where you want the Chromatic Sphere, as you can actually just use that to draw a card.
But again, the thing that I keep thinking about is, okay, if I'm Ben, I'm obviously not super happy that I got Thoughtseize and Leyline on turn 0 and turn 1.
Right.
But you should have more time, right? Like, if those two things happen, it means that you're less likely to be facing down a hollow one or some huge creatures
Yeah,
or whatever.
it is far less likely for you to have Leyline of the Void, Thoughtseize, and then lands, and then like a Goblin Lore, and then also the creatures to kind of get everything going.
Right. So what can Ben do with that time? Well, he wasn't super worried with the Leyline because he had the Nature's Claim, but that got taken away, so he's he's probably going to need to find another one, Paul,
Yeah.
and he just did right off the top of the library. He's going to still build out his board here, though, with Mox Opal and Mind Stone and leave that Nature's Claim in his hand, unbeknownst to Hull. Now, this does, of course, expose it to a potential Thoughtseize, but beyond that, he can now fire that thing off and then go off all in one turn. And right now, no pressure from Hull. Hull's going to play another Faithless Looting. And this is where things get a little interesting. He just drew another Leyline. Now, he can't cast it this turn, but he could just start hard casting.
Yeah, I don't think he wants to discard that. I think he wants to set up a game plan where he can hit his land drops and cast another one because, you know, Ben really heavily relies on his graveyard to win, so he does just want to have additional copies of those.
Now, that same point, though, that we've been making about Ben Hull also applies to Ben Stark. You know, he brought in 4 copies of Nature's Claim, and he's drawn 2 of them. But one card we haven't seen from him yet is Card Clan Ironworks. It does also put a dent in your ability to find your combo pieces. And even if he didn't sideboard quite as extensively, he's going to be, you know, maybe taking a little bit longer than normal to find all the pieces.
One advantage of Ben's deck, however, is that most of his deck just cycles. So oftentimes, if you're given the time, you can spend the mana to kind of go through all of the Chromatic Spheres, Mind Stones, and Stars to eventually kind of assemble the pieces of your combo.
That's you draw 4 and discard 3? Yeah. Okay. You don't have to shuffle because we're going to do a random anyway. Yeah, fair enough. So 6 is a reroll.
All right, so Goblin Lore here. Ben Hull is tapped out here.
I have no idea what card is in your hand.
And we do know that Ben Stark had a Scrap Trawler in hand off the Thoughtseize. Now let's take a look at Ben's hand. What is he working with on top of the Nature's Claim? So he doesn't have an Ironworks. He's got a Forest, a Scrap Trawler, and a Nature's Claim. But again, Nature's Claim, the most important card here.
Okay. And then obviously 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
Ben really wants to hit that other Leyline of the Void, actually.
Yeah, that's a long-term problem for him.
Does he hit it?
I didn't see what the middle card was.
Right, it's hard to tell, but he did get an Ancient Grudge.
And there we go.
Oh.
Nature's Claim
19.
is going to put Ben Hull back up to 19, but crucially gets rid of that Leyline.
And that black card in the graveyard was a Gurmag Angler, so he still has that Leyline of the Void in hand. Can Ben Stark go off this turn? Did he draw Card Clan Ironworks?
That is the first question. No. Buried Ruin was the draw step for him.
Or maybe he just never had a Leyline.
He did end up discarding.
Oh, to the Faithless Looting?
Yep,
okay.
to the Faithless.
I guess he thought he was safe given that he used the Thoughtseize on the Nature's
That's right.
Claim.
Yeah, do you remember when you were saying, well, he's going to want to hold on to that? Well, he disagreed.
Right. He
Yeah.
wanted to put pressure.
That could come back to bite him
It just
in
seems
a
so
major way.
You're right. It just seems so difficult to lose if your game plan is just putting a bunch of Leyline of the Voids into play. Like, Ben has to find multiple Nature's Claims to be able to fight through all of them.
He simply has no viable game plan as long as that card's on the battlefield.
Right.
Right? It's not like Ben can just be like, oh, I'll just start beating down with Scrap Trawlers, right?
Yeah.
Like, he doesn't have a viable backup plan.
Yeah, but Ben Hull still has disruption, but at this point, he wants to put pressure on. Ben Stark also has that Inventor's Pair on the battlefield, which is gaining him a life a turn.
Plays his third land. That's going to bring 2 Bloodghast back. Though Ben at cool 20 life means that they're not going to have haste just yet. So down to 18. Still some time, but now there is 6 power up facing down Ben Stark, who's at 18. So 3-turn clock and maybe even more power now thanks to the Gurmag Angler. So this is an explosive turn now for Ben Hull. He has fully added to the battlefield.
So
now
now
has
Ben
11 power.
Ooh, Ben is using now the Inventor's Spare to search out the Karkline Ironworks. Does he have all the pieces he needs? Ben Hull is currently tapped out. He has that Ancient Grudge in his graveyard, but he doesn't have the green mana to flash it back. And we do know he has a Scrap Trawler in hand as well.
Yeah, Ben has a land drop to give. He already has 4 mana on the battlefield as well, so we could see him go for it. He does have another
but
turn.
everything was on board, right? Inventor's Spare was on board, and Ben Hull knew about the Scrap Trawler in hand.
I mean, I have some stuff. I'm not full-blown off or anything.
This could be a misstep from Ben Hull, but we'll see. You heard Ben Stark say, look, I've got some stuff here, but I'm not just, done. We're not done here.
Right. Does he want to keep up that buried ruin?
Okay, I'm going to play the land and then I'll think. The stone is cheaper.
All right, we're going to stick with this match, but we'll be also keeping an eye on Josh Utter-Leyton versus Alan Wu, just because this one is taking quite a while.
Right, so now Ben can play the Karkline Ironworks, sack Chromatic Star for some mana. Then he can tap the Mind Stone. Oh, no, sorry. He can sack the Mox Opal here for mana.
And the star.
And the star. So now he's at 4. Now he gets to play the Scrap Trawler. He's got 1 left.
Now what?
Oh, I'm going to have exactly 0 mana, huh? That's not great.
That's what I was thinking, Ben.
If I don't hit 0, well, I can get back the star. I mean, the Opal, but then I'm not getting back star, so I'm not down a card. I have to do that, though, I think.
This is great. Ben is just providing self-commentary on his match.
So I need cards, not mana.
Ben can opt to just sacrifice the Mind Stone to get back the Sphere for mana, and then sack the Sphere and see what he draws, but that only gives him 1 draw step.
Sack this for 2 mana.
But it looks like that's what he's going for here.
Play it summon 2.
Yeah, so now he's going to sack the star, or the star, get back the Mox Opal, and then he gets a draw here.
Draw a card from sacking star. Okay,
That was a buried ruin.
Right.
Here, let's listen to Ben. He's doing a pretty good job of verbalizing everything.
I also want to sack Trawler, which seems bad. Still at 18 life. What do you want me to do?
And Ben is at a pretty healthy life total, so he's not going to die here.
He can take the hit.
Your edge, right? 1 card in hand.
The problem is the Ancient Grudge. If he passes the turn, he could lose the Karkline Ironworks.
Right. Which would give Ben, the Mind Stone back, and he does have that buried ruin on the battlefield. But by losing the Karkline Ironworks, he's not going to have like a lot of mana to actually be able to recast the Ironwork next turn.
So you want me to bring Trawler? No, it's plus 1, right? I have to sack Trawler now, right?
He can sack Trawler to get back the Mind Stone. Now he's going to have a bunch of mana. So if he sacks the Trawler, he's going to go up to 6, cast the Mind Stone, go to 4, cycle the Mind Stone, and then
Ooh, he
go to
just
3.
passed the turn.
Oh, it looks like he's passing the turn. Okay.
On the board, he can take the hit. It's 11 damage. He's at 18. It's hard for Hull to come up with 7 more damage out of nowhere. So Stark is very likely to untap here. The question is, what does it look like if he gets to? Because the Karkline Ironworks can just go away thanks to that Ancient Grudge.
Hull does have 2 Flamewake Phoenixes, it looks like, in the graveyard. And we do know about Ancient Grudge.
Ooh, how about Goblin Lore?
Goblin Lore.
This could change things.
Same as always, you can give it a couple of
There's another Bloodghast that he could maybe hit with a land, but they wouldn't get haste because Ben Stark's currently at 18. So Ben does have at least 1 more turn, but by casting this Goblin Lore, that it does increase the chances of Ben Hull finding potentially another Ancient Grudge.
And then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 4.
Hollow one and a Thoughtseize plus the land. Hit the graveyard.
So it does seem to me that it's in Ben Hall's best interest here to use that Ancient Grudge on the Karkline Ironworks to slow Ben down.
I mean, that's just a huge slowdown.
Yeah, because Ben does need to use the Buried Rune to get back the Karkline Ironworks. And if he does do that, he will not have the mana to replay it that turn, meaning that Ben Hall might just be able to take down Ben Stark
Yeah,
with 2 attacks.
Yeah, that's right. He's got him down to 7 already. He's going to play Tassiger.
Oh, this turn we do have to win.
Is he just going to grudge it here? I think he is. Okay, so Ben needs to draw out of this because there is a lot of damage. Ben will not be able to survive another attack here because we have 3 Bloodghast, a Gurmag Angler, a Tassiger, and 2 Flamewake Phoenixes that are in Ben Hall's graveyard.
Right now, the Ancient Grudge is targeting the Clan Ironworks. And look at this. Ben Stark is going to use Nature's Claim on his own KCI to gain 4 life. Does that actually change it? Remember, he has a Scrap Trawler that can block.
Right.
2, 4, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. He's at 11.
And he's deciding whether or not to
Phoenixes.
get Star or Mind Stone, and he opted for the Star here.
Oof, this feels like it's going to be very, very close. Right now, that
This
Mox
team is-
Opal no longer online.
It looks really difficult to get out of this. So now Ben Stark is at 11. Can he actually block his way out of this?
He can on board, but you said that there's Flamewake Phoenixes, right?
Yeah, if there's 2 Flamewake Phoenixes in the graveyard, Ben
Then-
Stark can
then-
block Gurmag Angler, and he'll still take 14 damage.
That's right.
Unless he found the 4th Nature's Claim to stabilize at 1 life.
I'm at 11.
I think he did.
Did he?
I think
What is Ben working with here? Does he?
they don't play around the 4th one. Terrarian. go.
Terrarian go.
Man, if Ben Stark pulls this.
Okay.
So Ben has the ability.
Ooh, was that a Leyline of the Void?
To be aware, they informed us at the time. I know, I'm just making sense.
Yeah, but I think he's going to go with the Flamewake Phoenix kill here.
Right, he can't do
Right.
both. He cannot do both.
So what Ben can do here is block Gurmag Angler, Flamewake Phoenixes, and the Bloodghasts, and the Tassiger is threatening 14 damage. Ben is at 11. If he uses Nature's Claim on his own Terrarion,
Ben.
he will go up to 15, which means he'll go down to 1 life.
Oh,
and I
look at
think,
Ben. He's like, just kill me, man.
right,
You got
and
it.
I think he has enough mana to actually. Does he have enough mana to Nature's Claim and also use Buried Ruin this turn?
There it
I
is.
think he
Both
does.
Flamewake Phoenix, everything comes into the red zone.
So it's 2, 4, 6,
No, he doesn't.
11, 15, 17, 19. So if I gain 5, I'm
Oh wait, when Terrarion hits the graveyard, you just get the 2 mana, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. This is crazy.
zeros to get back. Yeah. So none of this.
Oh, he does not get the mana. He does not get the mana. So he does get to just draw a card.
Yeah. He does draw a card when it hits the battlefield, but
There's no way I can get anything extra back. Trawler's going to get back stone regardless.
you can see the game plan coming together, though. Block,
Ben
blow up
starts
my
to go to
Terrarian
1.
to draw a card. I want to go to 15 and take 14.
15. Wait. Yeah. Kill that, right? Hold on. What do you want me to target? You don't want to destroy the. This is. What do you want me to do? You're not killing the trawler? Why am I killing the trawler? Oh, because it's going to die anyway? Yeah, that's better, I guess.
I just want to think about this. Doesn't give mana, by the way. I want you to think about this before you do.
Sure. I'll kill the trawler.
It still doesn't give.
Yeah, he does have 3 artifacts.
Like, the trawler's dying anyway, and sacking this to get a card now could be a good thing.
Right, and this means that there's a higher chance that Ben can draw a cheaper artifact for the Metalcraft for the Mox Opal. So he just wants to make sure he has enough artifacts in play for the.
That's
for
right.
The
Hey, you don't want to make a mistake when you've planned out this game this ridiculously close way. And you can see that Martin was just adding some. Now, there's Flameblade Adept. That's not going to do anything here. Ben Hall
he
has
had the mana. Okay.
infinite lethal threats. He is ready to go.
Oh, that was a nice draw. Was that a Darksteel Citadel?
I need all of it to go off. But you're definitely correct.
Wow, if Ben gets out of this.
This is incredible. Now we have Cartline Ironworks on the battlefield.
Right, and now he has that second copy of Buried Ruin to get back Scrap Trawler. Does he have the mana to do everything?
Yeah, it doesn't matter. I need cards. 4, 2, 8, 6. No, no. Would you suck to it?
Yeah, so Ben has 4 mana. Oh, and a Mox Opal!
Oh my goodness sakes. Ben Stark finds Mox Opal, which is a big mana boost, especially if he has another artifact, which he does.
So now he gets to play Mox Opal, wow, and the Citadel was
The
huge
Citadel too. There it is. The 2 parts of the combo. Now he just needs to piece together enough card draw.
He needs to be able to cycle through enough cards here. He does have a Mind Stone and a Chromatic Star, which is multiple cards. Wow.
Oh, this is incredible. Can he actually make it through?
Stabilizing at 1 life. Will he be able to piece together the combo here?
It took 4 copies of Nature's Claim to get him here. 2 of them targeting his own things.
Leyline, Thoughtseize, Ancient Grudge.
Plays a Mind Stone.
I'm going to sack the stone for a card, so I'm on 1, and I'll get back a star.
Let's put that Mind Stone in the yard. There we go. Engineered Explosives.
Not going to do a lot. It does provide him 2 mana.
Right? He's got 1 green and 1 colorless mana floating.
Something, right? So I just draw cards.
So I think he just has to play the star here and try to
Cross his fingers.
right, like something like an Ichor Wellspring would be great. Mirror Retriever would also be good. But yeah, this is a big draw.
Oh, can he hit something great here? There's the
has-
Mox Opal back.
He has all the mana in the world.
Yeah, I am.
It's the ability to keep drawing cards that he needs.
Oh, okay, that's another card to
It is.
cycle.
It
because he
doesn't
has a
net
bunch of
him
mana.
1, but it keeps cycling through one at a time. Like you said, he's got all the mana he needs, thanks to recurring that Mox Opal.
Okay, so
Every time he plays it, taps it, and sacks it, it's 3 mana added to his pool.
so close. So float a mana, sack Mox Opal.
Chat is chanting Hall of Fame at Ben Stark right now.
All right, here we go. Another very important draw step here. What is it?
That was a
Oh, it was a
land.
land.
This time we do have to sack Ironworks or Trawler or something.
This is really getting down to it.
Wow. Now does Ben want to make sure he gets a bunch of mana before sacrificing the Cartline Ironworks? Right? So I think at this point, Ben has, it looks like he has 4 mana in his mana pool. He does have cards like Engineer Explosives and Mox Opal in hand, so he can play those out first, sack them to make sure he generates enough mana so that if he does sack the Cartline Ironworks, into a cycler, which then cycles him into another Cartline Ironworks, he has a mana to cast everything.
And I can make a lot of mana. I can sack all of these.
He's saying exactly what you're saying, Paul.
I'm just going to make a ton of mana and then sack the works, I think. I mean, I won't.
But then you're not going to have a cycle.
I know, but I mean, if you think I can sack like the non-terrarian things and Mind Stones, I can't sack. I mean, we can think for a second, but I can sack Wellsprings. I can't sack Wellsprings or Retriever. That's big.
Yeah, I think you should cycle.
I'm gonna check my sideboard.
This is one of those moments. I mean, this is so big. Ben even has an interesting choice of whether or not he wants to sacrifice Scrap Trawler or the Cartline Ironworks.
Yeah, he is certainly not guaranteed to win from this point. He is in the middle of trying to go off, but can't get any momentum as far as cards go.
Right.
Plenty of mana available, but he is now forced to sacrifice one of his key combo pieces in a desperate attempt to dig further into his library.
We should sack Trawler.
Okay, fine.
But I'm not.
I don't have to make more mana first if that's what we're doing. So I'll sack
So his plan is to now sack the Scrap Trawler to get back
If I
a
hit a Wellspring or something, I've got a lot of cards.
Mind Stone. Wait, is it not better to get the 1 mana one if he's looking to just cycle? Yeah, okay.
Yes, and he also figured that out.
So we go to 5.
All right, we got a cycle here. He needs to find action. Ichor Wellspring, Scrap Trawler, what is it?
And then this will come
Okay,
Another sphere.
another draw, what is it? Ancient Stir, oh, it's a land. I think that's game.
Yeah, they can't win, and that is going to do it. On top of it, by the way, Paul, while we were engrossed in this game, Alan Wu just beat Josh Utter-Leyton, almost simultaneous to that one. And it was a clean sweep. In fact, it was a 3-0.
3-0.
One of the first
But it was an
3-0s we
exciting
had.
3-0.
But what a fantastic win for Wu, Hull, and Orange. They are now 9-1-1 and just toppled the top team in the field right now.
Right. And the really impressive thing, I mean, the fact that they beat a trio of Hall of Famers is really impressive. But what still just stands out to me, the most impressive thing, is how resilient that Clan Ironworks deck was. I mean, it was able to nearly win off of Leyline of the Void, Thoughtseize, Ancient Grudge. It actually beat that game too.
Yes.
I mean, that's just wild.
That is insane. It almost went off that game. You know, an Icar Wellspring here or there. Maybe
needed a Wellspring very
could have
badly.
pushed it over the edge. But like I said, it was for naught anyway because the death and taxes in the hands of Alan Wu has been very powerful for this team. Beat Josh Utter-Leyton and earned them the victory in the round to improve to 9-1-1. 3 more rounds of Swiss before we cut to our top 4. But first, these messages.
Looking for a challenge? Magic Online offers monthly limited and constructed events, which lead to the yearly Magic Online Championship. Download Magic Online at mtgo.com and start earning the points you need to enter.
Welcome back to the news desk. We're at the end of round 11. 11 down, 3 to go as $1 Million Magic Weekend continues. Rich, Maria and Simon here. Simon, through the lens of the team series, how did Ultimate Guard, the leaders, do this past round?
They both won their matches, so they are up to 7-4. Not a great record, but they're getting there.
Right, and 9-5 gets extra pro points, 10-4 gets a bunch of extra pro points. Second place in the team series, Utter-Leyton. Maria, how did those two trios go?
Well, another good story there, Rich. They both won as well. Those two teams are sitting at 9-2 and 8-3.
Right, so they've got both horses live, as it were, for top 4 still. Very definitely starting to look like 11-3 could be enough. Certainly for some teams. Maybe there'll be 11-3 outside looking in. Maybe there'll be a 10-4 making it in. We'll see. Now, Channel Fireball, we've just seen the Hall of Fame trio, Utter-Leyton, Stark and Juza, fall to 9-2, but still right in the thick of things. And Luis Scott Vargas, meanwhile, off camera, along with Paolo Vida Domodorosa and Mike Sigrist, they started out 0-3. They're up to 7-4. Who's on the floor? It's BDM with Eduardo Sajgalic.
Thanks, Rich. I'm here with Eduardo Sajgalic. And Eduardo, that was a crazy match. I just got a chance to watch. We're going to see you guys in the feature match area. Tell me about that last match and that last game that, you know, everybody was chipping in with Yam Wing Chun to help figure that sequence of plays out.
Right, so one thing is, I asked him before he starts game free, so this is for standard, if he wants like any advice, and he basically says no. so like when I'm watching, like I will eventually end up watching, but just to make sure, because he knows the sequence, is just to confirm in his mind that it's the right sequence, because if I say something wrong, then we'll double check. So at the end, basically Logan Nettles is playing red-black, and he's presenting lethal every turn, and every turn we have fog. So Hazel Pollen or Root Snare, so to stop all damage. But at some point, he sacrifices a bunch of Bomad Couriers, has like infinite cards, like 9+. And as Chandra taking down, and we're like, okay, well, we're at like free life. I think this is like the point where we have to start going off. So we have Karn. We go for, like, so that turn we had Oath of Teferi, Karn, like Root Snare. Then our turn we went, get it to Teferi. Play Teferi, untap some lands, Nexus of Fate on our end step, because Teferi allows us to untap lands, especially when you can use it twice. So and with Gift of Paradise, that can be up to 6 mana. So, you know, it's pretty good.
It's pretty sweet.
Yeah. So we do that, and then at some point, we redraw Nexus of Fate, we get another turn, and then at some point, we could continue, like, making the charade continue with Teferi, Nissa Steward of Elements, and Karn, Sign of Urza, but Yam goes, oh, I can just kill him. He just goes like plus Nissa, second activation, make 2 5/5s, play another Nissa for 8, 2 5/5s, boom, 20U. After putting both Phoenix and Heart on top.
Wow, that was crazy. This deck is insane. It's going to be in the feature match area this round. This guy's going to be in the feature match area this round. They're X2-1, and they are looking for one more win to lock this guy up as gold, as well as his teammate Hao Huangshan. So let's watch them play. Thanks.
So I shall go play.
Okay, you remember your bag.
Thanks so much, BDM. All right, Rich, let's take a look at our leaderboard and let us know where we're at this point in the tournament, because we're, you know, making our way down to the end here.
I hate draws. I hate draws with a fiery passion. They make things so complicated. They also make things very, very exciting. Wu Hull and Orange have a draw, 9 wins, 1 draw, 1 loss. That's 28 match points, 3 points for a win, as it were. Utter-Leyton, Stark and Juza, having just lost to Wu Hull and Orange, are at 9-2, along with Sukenik Nagro Cochrane, Frolic Nassif Williams and Carvalho Saprito Ramal. That is a ridiculous top 5 right there. Then you're back into draw bracket with Sajgalic, Huang and Yan. We just heard from Eduardo there. Then it's all your 8 and 3s. They go down to 18th. First time we've mentioned the team from Belgium, Christophe Gregoire, Branko Nyrink, Thomas van der Pelt. Good job by them. They've been working their way up the standings at 8-3 with no draws. And then in 19th place, really the foe of all teams on X and 4, Martel, Ayers and Rolf. This is Brandon Ayers, John Rolf, who traditionally team together, and then Pro Tour champion from 2013, Tom Martel at 7-3-1. If they win all their 3, they'll get to 10-3-1, be ahead of all the 10-4s, of course. And that may mean, Simon, that a 10-4 doesn't make it in. We may see that not happening anyway. Perhaps we're in the land of just 11-3. We'll see.
We have 3 more rounds, and we're looking at only 4 slots because this is a team event. You can you can kind of look at this and you can say that's 18 teams at 8-3-0, but every round that number is going to half itself. So 3 more rounds means you divide by 8. There is some wriggling room left for teams below that number to make it.
Yeah, so Martelez and Rolf will feel that their draw at the moment is not necessarily as bad as a loss. It may just be their ticket into the top 4. But so many great teams up at the top there, and so much at stake still for the team series. Channel Fireball, perhaps one of the big threats. Ultimate Guard at 7-4. They've got some big matches to win here. If they can get to 9-5 bonus points, 10-4, a ton of bonus points. That's like 12 extra points for the team if you can get that 10th win. So we'll keep an eye on that. And of course, our team, not just the team series, but our overall leaderboard. So what's up next in the feature match area, Maria?
All right, we're going to be seeing Sajgalik, Wong, and Yam versus Wilson, Ritzy, and Shenhar. And let's talk about first Yam versus Shahar Shenhar, which is a really interesting matchup in standard. Turbo Fog versus Esper Control.
Crikey.
So, like, what on earth is being fogged here, Simon?
Well, not much. Maybe a Torrential Gearhulk, who knows? But that's actually interesting because the Turbo Fog deck suddenly has to play like a control deck. Has to resolve those Karns, those Teferis, and then Nexus of Fate is still going to be a powerful card, but you're not just going to get go off against a deck with that much counter magic.
Do you have a favorite in that matchup?
Really difficult to say. Both will draw a lot of dead cards in the first game, particularly the player that draws less of those will probably win game 1.
So in our modern seat, we have Wong versus Ritzy, and that is humans versus blue-white control. And this, unlike our last match we just talked about, is kind of like opposite ends of the spectrum here.
Exactly, and this can also go either way. Humans can have really powerful draws, and then the key cards are the Meddling Mages, the Talias, and the Kitesail Freebooters, because you don't want, for example, a Supreme Verdict or a Terminus to resolve.
And how about our legacy seat here? Sajgalik versus Wilson, Teamer Delver versus Teamer Delver.
I love it. There are mirrors that are fun to watch, and there are mirrors that are just amazing, and that one is definitely some of the highest level magic you can witness, period.
So if we're watching at home, how do we know which player might have the upper hand in a Delver-Delver matchup?
The player that has the threat that is attacking is definitely favored to win. And you can usually tell if somebody is under so much pressure that they're forced to just fire off their brainstorms to find solutions to what the opponent is doing. If you have all the time in the world with your brainstorms, you're usually ahead in the game.
All right, great stuff. So let's take one more look at our leaderboard here at Pro Tour 25th anniversary with 3 rounds to go. Now, it's not certain that you are currently looking at the winning team, because it's possible that someone at 7-4 will win their last 3 rounds, have fantastic tie breaks, and work their way up. But what is true is that generally, the further you are up the leaderboard for the longest time, the better your tie breaks are going to be, which means that teams further down the leaderboard at 7-4, even if they win to get onto our top screen here of the top 20 teams, are going to really struggle to overhaul on tie breaks teams like Froelich, Nassif, and Williams, for example, who are at 8-1, Utter-Leyton, Stark, and Juza, who of course were undefeated overnight. So in general, there is a very good chance that right now you are looking at the winner of Pro Tour 25th anniversary. But we'll get a lot clearer picture once round 12 is in the books. And to do that, we need to head down once again to the crucible that is our feature match area.